We've got everybody checked in and ready to roll.
Go ahead, you're open to both.
3,
Put it over to the slate now.
2, 1. Take camera 1. Go, John.
Welcome to the Washington Post.
Welcome to Washington Post Live. I'm Leanne Caldwell.
I'm Yasmin Abu Talib.
I'm David Ignatius.
That was quite an intro. My gosh, we should probably just leave it right there.
I've hit the big time. Washington Post. I can go home and tell my parents what I did today.
Between Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Washington Post Live itself, we are now reaching hundreds of thousands of homes across all 50 states.
The power of this platform is it takes people into the world of ideas.
Audience members of Washington Post Live are part of the conversation.
I would like to ask the audience, how many of you knew before today's event that heart disease was the #1 killer of women? Okay, just me.
Whether it's with cancer scientists or politicians.
This panel, I think, was originally called, 2 women against Putin. It really should be 3 women against Putin. So
the better way to get things done, as I've demonstrated, is by putting a group together and negotiating something that's good for both points of view.
So tell me what your plan is.
Oh, we have lots of plans.
I think Washington Post Live offers journalists like me a new way to do our job.
Their work is hugely important.
A new way to connect with our audience.
Hello, Senator Schumer. Welcome to the Washington Post. This is going to be fun.
A new way to deepen our engagement with people who care about the Washington Post and our mission of gathering news.
I'm still having a lot of fun, Kat, a lot of fun.
And their individuality comes through more so than just their title.
Generally said, David, take off your tie.
Yes.
So, it's a rare appearance for me.
It's a tech conference. No one in the tech world wears ties, David.
So that is the lock from the night of the burglary.
Jeff Bezos bought it at an auction.
Right.
And we're trying to find out how much Bezos paid.
Right. Come back next week.
I'm so grateful to be on a platform like the Washington Post. I subscribe, I read, I love the Washington Post.
Thank you.
We need films like this. So thank you very much. Stephen, Lynn, it's been great to talk to you.
And I'm quite honored that the Washington Post should want to talk with me. Thank you.
I cannot thank you all enough.
Good morning and welcome to the Washington Post. I'm Catherine O'Hearn, the executive producer of Washington Post Live. It's very good to see everyone here today to join us in honoring America's veterans. This is personal for many of us. My father was an Army veteran who served in the Pacific during World War II, and my husband served in the U.S. Air Force for 26 years. Today, there are more than 18 million veterans living in the United States. That's about 6% of the country's adult population. But over the past few decades, as you may know, the number has been declining. Today's veterans, though, are younger, more racially diverse, and a group that is made up of more women. And we'll hear more about that new generation today. You'll also hear from top officials and a number of impressive veteran advocates. We're going to start with my colleague, Dan Lamothe, who will sit down with Allison Jaslow, the CEO of Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, Jack McCain, Reserve Naval Aviator and the son of the late Senator John McCain, and Graciela Tiscareno Sato, author and Air Force veteran, as they talk about the dynamics around this new generation of vets. Then the Post's Karen Tumulty will be joined by Deputy Secretary of Veteran Affairs Tanya Bradsher to discuss the Biden administration's efforts to support the veteran population. And the Post's executive editor, Matt Murray, will be joined by Lieutenant General Steve Gilland, the superintendent at West Point, as they talk about the military academy's focus on leadership science and the process of transforming cadets into future leaders who can tackle real-world national security challenges. And we'll also hear from Colonel Larry Perino, Assistant Vice President of Business Solutions at the Navy Federal Credit Union, about the ways veterans and veteran entrepreneurs can grow businesses and overcome financial challenges. On that note, I would like to offer special thanks to Navy Federal Credit Union for sponsoring today's event. And thanks to all of you for joining in person, and we have a number of folks joining virtually as well. My colleague Dan Lamothe will be taking the stage with our first guests in right after this short video. Thank you.
There's an entire population of Spanish-speaking kids, like me, because that was my first language, who really need to see that there's other things you can do and there's other people you can be other than what you're surrounded by.
Many of us who served post 9/11 are now out of uniform. We're trying to live life in a country we risked our lives for and enjoy the way of life we fought for just the same.
We as Americans, we as service members, we as the United States have a debt of honor and a moral responsibility to make sure that those that fought alongside us, those that are put in danger because of that, them and their family members are able to stay here in the United States.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Lamoth. I'm a national security writer. I cover the U.S. military and the Pentagon for the Washington Post. I'm delighted to have with me three guests who have served in the Army, Navy, and Air Force, respectively. On stage, we have Allison Jaslow, CEO of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, Jack McCain, CEO of Blue Sky Vantage and a board member of the McCain Institute, and Graciela Tiscareño Sato, CEO and founder of the Gracefully Global Group, a publishing firm. Allison, Jack, and Graciela, welcome to the Washington Post.
Thanks for having us.
Allison, I want to start with you, with the changing makeup of the veteran population. By 2048, it's expected that women, Hispanic, and African American veterans and veterans under 50 years old will make up a larger share of the total veteran population. How does this change what veterans need?
Well, I think first and foremost, thank you for having us here today and also understanding the changing face of America's veterans because, one of the focal points of our organization is making sure that the American people understand the changing face of America's veterans. When we launched our Women Veterans campaign back in 2017, which we called our She Who Won the Battle campaign, we regularly talked about how we're changing the way America sees its veterans. And culturally, we still don't necessarily think of somebody who looks like me when you think of a veteran. But the demographics are changing. Women especially are the fastest growing demographic group in the veteran population. The VA has struggled to keep up with the changes in the veteran population, but we've actually made some really great advances over 2 decades of time, especially post 9/11. I think the imperative, the national security imperative to make sure that we're caring for our veterans, now that we have an all-volunteer force, has really forced some needed change, even if it took a little bit of time at the VA.
For decades, military recruitment has been declining, but the facts remain the overwhelming majority of new recruits in the military are children of military families. Jack, I don't need to tell you that this is often a family business. For generations, 4 generations of McCains have served in the Navy, and you are still a Naval Reserve aviator. Why do you think fewer American families are joining the military, and what role do military families play in recruitment?
Sure. First of all, I would like to thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm incredibly happy to be able to sit with you again, so glad to see you. Yes, unfortunately, it is increasingly a family business. The way that our military families and those that choose to go in are a lot of times just exposed to it through their family, through uncles, fathers, sisters, cousins, whatever. And while it isn't a glaring issue, I'd say the biggest problem is that we're not getting the recruitment numbers that we truly need. And so I think the best way is storytelling. I think being able to go out in front of young people, in front of potential recruits, in front of diverse audiences, and frankly tell the tale. I am who I am today because of the United States military, because of the training they gave me. They taught me to fly an aircraft. They taught me a new language. I got to see the world, 70% of which is water, but we won't begrudge at that. But truly, storytelling, exposure, and then the positive storytelling that you can have when it comes to the military, because we're exposed to the military through movies or through media, and that doesn't always paint the positive picture, and it doesn't give you the fullness of the experience. So if anything, if you are a veteran, go out, tell your story, and then try to sing the song of just how enriching an experience being in the U.S. military is.
Graciela, you are the daughter of Mexican immigrants. There was no family connection, and yet you enlisted. Can you quickly tell us your story and your message to young people who are in a similar situation now?
Big question. Wow. Thanks for having me here and the privilege of representing Latinas and mothers and children of immigrants who serve. Yeah. So my parents are from Mexico, and we had no connection whatsoever. I was born 0.25 miles north of the border in El Paso. And no, never had seen anybody serve, knew nothing about it. And I actually did not enlist. I'd see the recruiters there and I'd be like, whoa, let me walk around away from them. Because I had decided when I was 15 that I was gonna be a college-educated woman. Had no idea how that was gonna happen, but I got very lucky in that my high school counselor's husband happened to be an Air Force major. So my story begins with mentorship. My story begins with what you just said. If you're a veteran, your number one job is to show up for young people as a storyteller, as a mentor. And he did. I went to their house for dinner and he told me about the Air Force ROTC scholarship. He says, I had 8 siblings. I'm from Appalachia. You only have 4 siblings. So he mentored me. And so I received the Air Force ROTC scholarship. My counselor helped me apply to Berkeley. And that's how this daughter of Mexican immigrants went to college. Air Force paid for it. And halfway through, the Air Force took us to a pilot training base and offered a chance to fly. And that was my first time on an airplane. And the lady pilot there said, this is something you can do. So everything that you just said about storytelling, that's literally what I do every day of my life. I just came from Houston, 2 days of school assemblies in bilingual education Title I schools, where I bring my flight suits and the kids dress up and see themselves as future aviators. And then at the Houston Air Show, where we do the same. And then families also get to take home the Captain Mama book series, the first ever books in English and Spanish where Mama's flying the jet. My story in Inglés and Español, for all the reasons that we just talked about. The storytelling, make it relevant. Make it relevant. And one more thing, we're fighting in the Latino community. Every parent that comes up, especially mothers, everybody knows the tragedy of the Vanessa Guillen murders. So now everybody comes up and says, the dads are like, the military is no place for my daughter. My puppy, sit down, we're gonna talk. Right? Because that's different, enlisting in the Army is different than flying airplanes for the Air Force. So I'm seconding everything you said about storytelling, and I've just literally made it my business to tell those stories in 2 languages for all the reasons that we know we must.
Okay. With your commission, about 82% of the military is enlisted, 18 or so percent are officers. Can you speak briefly about the distinction, just in your experience, what you've seen? What happens if not as many Americans are enlisting or joining?
Mm-hmm. Well, obviously, you're going to have gaps. I mean, we've never always had 100% everywhere. I mean, that's just never been the case. I remember when I was serving, I flew KC-135s at Fairchild Air Force Base as a navigator. And we were 76% manned perpetually all 8 years that I was there. So what happens when a quarter of the force is there? Well, you can't deploy 100% of your airplanes. Okay, and the same thing, if people aren't enlisting, you're not going to have enough boom operators because that's an enlisted position. So you're going to have worsening ability to respond to the crisis that exists because you need all the people. So I think that's what I'm concerned about is readiness, is like what happens if a third of the force is non-existent or worse, right? So I see it as readiness, and that's across all the services, is we will not be able to respond as quickly, as well. People won't be as well trained because they just got there. Maybe the people who were teaching them are gone. So I just see it as a big readiness problem in our ability to respond to whatever geopolitical crisis might come up.
Allison, you served 2 tours in Iraq as an Army officer. You're also the first woman to lead IAVA. I wonder if you could speak to this civil-military divide. I know that's something you and I have talked about on and off camera. How can veterans come back to a society that doesn't necessarily understand what they've experienced, but on the whole is more representative now of everyday Americans than they have been before?
Yeah, I mean, bridging the military-civilian divide is like a personal passion of mine. If I have to be a one-woman bridge to the divide, I will be. I think, unfortunately, most vets, you get culturally trained to just like put your head down and like do the work. And so this crosses generations. A lot of vets are sort of low-key about their service and not wanting to be, hero worshipped or whatever. And I think one of the unintended consequences of that, also at the time when we're fighting with an all-volunteer force, so there's fewer and fewer Americans who are actually doing the fighting and defending our nation right now, is that without that connectedness, there's a loss of cultural competency around our community. And so I think, to Jack's point, like for those of us who are comfortable, the more people who can be talking about service, not only helps us teach our fellow Americans about our lived experience, but it also doesn't let other forces shape what being a vet looks like, right? I actually just got into like a heated conversation with one of our partners probably last week, where I basically had to say, like, we're not all broken, like.
Thank you. Thank you.
And part of what inspires our advocacy is to make sure that like the veteran suicide crisis is dealt with like a sense of urgency in our nation today. I unfortunately don't know a vet who doesn't know another vet who died by suicide, and we need people to care about that. We need the government to focus resources on that. But also, at IAVA, we have something we call Vets Rising. And like the post-9/11 generation of veterans specifically is ascended in America today. You see them in the halls of Congress, but you also see them selling off companies in Silicon Valley. And I think, to your point about the recruitment crisis as well, like the more that we are out there and telling our stories, like you can see service as a launch pad to a very thriving, post-service career in America. And I think at a time when, America needs veteran leadership more than anything else.
Jack, we often hear from veterans who are tired of tropes. The way that combat veterans in particular are either painted in popular culture as heroes or broken, to your point, Allison, and incapable, at least with the stereotype of assimilating back into civilian life. How can we change that narrative?
Yeah, well, I hate to go back to my own point over and over again, but storytelling is one way. Exposure to veterans, to the humanity behind each of us is, I think, what would be most important in helping to undermine some of these tropes. Because you're right, every day, almost everywhere you go, when you mention you're in the military, people say thank you for your service, or you're all heroes, and I strongly disagree with that. There are absolutely heroes in the military, but some of us just did our jobs. And I think the appreciation of that aspect would kind of help humanize all of us. And it's also incumbent upon veterans to help break some of our cultural tropes ourselves. That when we choose only to interact with one another, or we make the assumption that only another veteran could possibly understand the experiences that we've been through, we self-isolate. And stopping the self-isolation not only is going to help recruitment, but will also help undermine those tropes, because they're not helpful. And I understand the cultural reflex, where it came from. There's still a little bit of cultural guilt over what happened in Vietnam when veterans would come home and they'd be spit on or whatever. So we've made up for that, don't worry, we really have. But now it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we humanize ourselves and that we refuse to isolate in this, no one understands but us culture.
Graciela, you've talked about how portraying women as prey won't encourage more women to serve. And yet there does remain a problem with sexual assault in the military, even if the numbers have declined some. When you speak to young people around the country firsthand, what do you tell them when that issue comes up?
You know, it doesn't come up with the young people, it comes up with their parents. There's a lot of fear, right? And so I will give a shout out to a woman who created a really amazing book. It's called A Girl's Guide to Military Service, fellow Air Force veteran Amanda Huffman. She literally wrote the book on all the things that we wish we'd known before we signed up, before we chose our service, because we didn't know the difference between the services. But Amanda wrote this book where, you know, she addresses the kinds of behaviors that are helpful to be treated with respect and the kind of behaviors that are not helpful to you as a young woman to be treated with respect. So she addresses that in a really nice way, and it comes from a Women in the Military podcast that she has. It's literally the wisdom of 250 women that she's interviewed. So I would look to that resource to help prepare young women to serve. Okay, and my message is, you know, I want to see more women become officers. I think it's super cool that there's 2 officers right here, well, all of us, that are women, because we need to see more of us, right? And I want to see women go into the military older, at 22 years old, when you've already been hanging out with guys in the college or the academy or wherever, so you kind of know that dynamic a little bit better, versus you're going straight from your parents' house into the military at 18. Very scary for beautiful young Latinas, especially because there's another stereotype out there about beautiful young Latinas. So it's all those things, but it's, you know, it comes down to like how you behave also. And that's where women veterans come in, and we can help mentor those young girls who do decide to enlist and prepare them better. So I think there's a lot we can do as veterans. Again, the title of this whole panel, what we can teach. We can certainly teach our girls the things that we know work and don't work when you're serving in the military. So please turn to Women Veterans Alliance, turn to us as individuals, and let us help the girls make those decisions.
Allison, after the U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan in 2021, we saw a large number of U.S. service members adjusting to the reality that that war ended with a strategic loss, despite all the years of sacrifice. Can you speak to how these wars in Iraq and Afghanistan in particular impacted the group of veterans that you lead and serve, and perhaps in ways that are different than earlier generations?
I mean, I'd say the first thing is, you know, myself included, many of us served multiple deployments. You know, serving with an all-volunteer force means that many of us have buddies who've served 3, 4, you know, and it's a very small, you know, population of people who keep going over and over again. And I think something that will be unique to our generation is the compounding effects of that. And then I think, you know, you have 2 wars that were both complicated in their own ways. You know, I served in Iraq. By the time I got there, we had learned there were no weapons of mass destruction. We had already captured Saddam Hussein. So I'm literally a platoon leader in wartime trying to explain to my troops after they've just suffered loss what that loss was for. And I think one of the sort of like things that I will carry with me for the rest of my life is that, like, I don't ever want a platoon leader to not be able to look in the eyes of their troops when you've suffered loss and not be able to say what that loss was for. And I think, you know, as it relates to Afghanistan, I did not serve there, but I would say that the pullout was very traumatic for our entire community, even if you didn't serve there. And I think, you know, especially we're sitting in Washington, D.C. right now, like this was a withdrawal that became very political, that there were shrewd political decisions that were made inside government around it. And I think what most veterans can agree, especially those who served post 9/11, is that we saw all of this playing out as though us humans weren't going to be subjected to those forces. You know, many of us had to be emotional support for some of our friends who just were turned upside down by the entire experience, or maybe they were friends who had interpreters reaching out to them, panicked for their lives because they thought the Taliban was going to hunt them and their families, and then also felt a personal responsibility to help them find safe harbor here and struggled to get attention and support from our government to do so. I still think, to answer your question more fully, Dan, I think as a nation, we still have some work to do to unpack both of those wars and what they've done to our generation of war veterans to make sure that we do things better the next time we find ourselves in a full-scale war.
Jack, you've spent a lot of time trying to help the Afghan people who assisted U.S. troops. Can you reflect on that time and how you think that period might be impacting yourself, colleagues, and others who served in Afghanistan?
Yeah, absolutely. So for some context, my job was to be as close to the Afghan forces as possible for an American. I flew alongside Afghan pilots all over southern Afghanistan. So when the evacuation happened, it was incredibly personal. And we had to start making decisions about who to get out and how. And that was probably one of the more difficult periods of my life, to have to be on the phone with guys I worked with, guys who saved my life, and tell them, hey, we got to find a way to get you and your family out, but I can't guarantee it'll happen. So from the personal side, I think that was a gutting experience. Not just to watch what was 20 years of effort fail, fall flat on its face, but to watch those that we cared about, those that we worked alongside, those that we fought alongside, be left, be abandoned. And it become incumbent upon us, frankly, excuse my French, to unfuck the situation. And that's really, I think that I'm not singular in this. I think that there are a huge number of veterans who have had the exact same experience and have had to deal with the same fallout. I hope that someday there will be reconciliation for that, but I'm not hopeful. I think that this will be much like the Vietnam War. We'll just try to pretend it never happened. And we're doing a good job of that right now, actually. So if you do know a veteran who was affected by this, if you do know someone who had to endure those experiences, or Afghans, as importantly, who are now here in the United States, reach out to them, find out what they need, and try to help. Because imagine fleeing your country with nothing but the clothes on your backs, having to integrate into a society that you're unfamiliar with, knowing that you can never go home. Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Graciela, what do you see as the biggest need for veterans today?
The biggest need, well, considering that, 250 people leave the military every day, which is a number that I don't think most civilians know. You said it beautifully earlier, just the way we're integrated into the military, all the training that we get to join the military, but when you're leaving, it's like, here, have a TAP program and go be a civilian. And that doesn't work. And so the biggest need is, how can we train people leaving the military, as well as when we train them when they're joining, to become successful civilians? We're not doing that. We've never done that well. And so the need that I see is, and I'll just say it since you asked, the transition assistance program needs a lot of improvement. But when I have actually reached out to TAP program managers in different government agencies, I'm told the same thing across the board. It's congressionally mandated curriculum. It's okay. It's fine. So there's no desire to improve it. The biggest need really is how do you civilian? How do you speak civilian? How do you intrigue people with words so that you are the person that gets the interview? You don't know. You enlisted when you were 18 and you've been doing a job they trained you to do, and there's no I in team. And suddenly it's just you. So I teach personal branding for that reason, because veterans are so valuable if only they can learn how to speak their value of their experience. And I think it's a universal need, regardless of rank, because in the higher ranks, we get an idea that someone's just going to auto hire you, and you got a better network, so it might happen, but you still have to be able to articulate your value in an intriguing way. So I think that's the biggest need, because if you don't learn how to do that, then you might have bought into the lie that you heard that they're going to be knocking down the door to hire you because you're a veteran. And then when nobody calls you, nobody interviews you, what happens? Their self-esteem, their sense of self-worth,
And I think that's a universal need. I think that's the greatest need as they leave. Now, after they become veterans, the needs are all over the place. You know, some are bottom of the Maslow hierarchy of needs with housing. Okay, some go straight to education. But let's talk about entrepreneurship. Okay, I've been saying to the organizers of this event that entrepreneurship is a women's veterans issue. We have a 297% increase in the number of women veteran businesses started in the last 5 years. Almost 300%, that's a census number. So we need to talk about access to capital. We need to talk about entrepreneurship topics. That's a veterans need that doesn't get talked about for a huge number of veterans in the community. So there's a lot of different needs, but I'm going with that first one because that ability to articulate your value, whether you're a founder of a company or whether you're trying to get an interview, universal.
Lightning round. If you could sum up in one sentence what it means to be a veteran today, what would you have?
Wow.
Serve a cause greater than your self-interest.
Reach back into communities to offer opportunities that have helped you live your best life.
Unwavering commitment to what we have here in America.
Seems like a good spot to leave it. We're just about out of time here. Allison, Jack, Graciela, thanks so much for joining me on stage here today. Don't go anywhere. My colleague Karen Tumulty will be out here shortly with the Veterans Deputy Secretary, Tanya here. Please stay with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
From a family of service, of proud Army service. And so being the Deputy Secretary of the VA is just an incredible honor that I get to take care of veterans as in a way that I couldn't.
Good morning. I'm Karen Tumulty. I'm a columnist here at the Washington Post and an associate editor. And it is just such a treat for me to be here. My dad was a career Air Force officer, and as it happened, my mother was born on November 11th. So until I was about 5 years old, I thought they were always having parades on base because of her. But anyway, I am also just so honored to be joined here by Tanya Bradsher, who is the highest ranking woman at the Veterans Affairs as department as Deputy Secretary. So you've said it's okay to call you by your first name. So Tanya, welcome to the Washington Post.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Well, and as the video noted, you come from a family where 4 generations have served. Could you talk a little bit about your own service and your own decision to sort of add to the family legacy?
Absolutely. I'm a proud 4th generation Army soldier. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, and my dad all served. My dad did 22 years. He retired as a sergeant first class right at Fort Myers, so down the road. And my grandfather, my mother's father, was the conductor of the Army Band and the longest serving conductor of the Army Band. And so I've always been around the Army my whole life. I grew up at what is now Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg. We lived there for 11 years till my dad was actually taken off a jump status. And he went to Germany, and we moved up here for me to go to junior high and high school. And then I went on to University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. And afterwards, The true story is I got married and pretty young, very young, 22, and it was not a good decision. And my mom one day drove me to the recruiters in Arlington, Virginia. And I was sitting there and I thought, why am I here? And I thought we were going to lunch. And she said, we'll go to lunch after you talk to a recruiter because you need to get out of here. And I went in and I talked to the Sergeant Johnson, and I told him I wanted to go to OCS. And he said, well, it'll take a commitment. Are you willing to do it? So I thought, well, I'll try and see what happens. And lo and behold, I got accepted to officer candidate school, went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and started my career. I did basic training and then went to OCS at Fort Benning, Georgia.
And then I think it was probably a decade later, you were stationed at the Pentagon. You were actually in the building on 9/11 when the plane hit. Could you talk, and on top of everything, you had just gotten the very welcome news that you were pregnant.
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit about that experience and what it meant to you?
I was a Joint Staff intern. I'd been stationed to the Pentagon about 4 months after finishing public affairs school. And I just found out that I was pregnant with my middle daughter, Catherine. And, for being an intern, it was kind of a nice, you go in at 8:30, you go to the gym, you leave at 4 o'clock, life was great. And then we went in on Tuesday, September 11th. It was a beautiful day. And the first tower was hit. And then the second tower was hit. And so we knew at that time that the country was under attack. And I was in Joint Staff Public Affairs, and I remember a woman running down the hallway carrying her shoes and screaming, get out of my way, get out of my way. And we started evacuating because we didn't hear the implosion because of where we were in the Pentagon at the time. And so we were talking and we were like, we're under attack, we don't have time for this. And so as we're leaving and the doors open, we saw the black plume. And so all the chatter, once the doors were open, just stopped. And we went outside and we evacuated the building. And we were on the other section, and you could just see the smoke billowing. And then the floors collapsed, because it took 22 minutes before the floors collapsed of the section that was hit by the plane. And we thought that was another explosion. And that was when we finally left. But we were all ready to go back into the building and do what we do. And so then we evacuated that Tuesday. And on Wednesday, we went back into the building. It was still on fire. Arlington County was still putting out fire in the roof. And we just went in and did our jobs.
So you have been such a path breaker. You are the first woman of color to hold the position that you do at the Department of Veterans Affairs. Could you talk a little bit about how that has influenced how you approach this job?
So women veterans are the fastest growing cohort within the VA. And I hope that first and foremost, while I may be the first, I won't be the last. That hopefully by fellow women veterans seeing me in this role, that they feel the VA is the place for them. And while I want to do outreach to all veterans, I do find my interactions with women veterans that they don't always feel that they're a veteran. I was standing in Target and a cashier opened up a line. And I was like, thank you so much, really appreciate it. It was on Veterans Day. And so she had a line for veterans. And I thanked her, and she said, I used to be a veteran. I said, well, that's not a group you get to leave. We're veterans for life. And someone along the way had told her that because she didn't deploy or because she never left her base, that she wasn't a female veteran or a veteran. And so one of the biggest things that I try to do is demystify who a veteran is. And even doing PACT Act events, when PACT Act was passed, we went out and included in the budget was us to be able to also do engagements. And so at church, I actually had a PACT Act event, and I had a spouse come up to me and was really adamant about her husband's service and making sure that he got everything he needed and to file. And I said, "Oh, where'd you meet?" And she said, "Oh, we met at Fort Carson." I said, "Oh, did you serve?" She said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, did you file?" "Well, no, my spouse." And so this compartmentalization of women veterans, and while we've done a really great job last year, we enrolled 53,000 women into our healthcare system, which is the highest number ever, but we still have a lot of work to do.
So, and we're going to talk in a bit about the PACT Act and what it's achieved and what you would still like to see it achieve. But I'd like to return to the point that you made about women being the fastest growing group of veterans, and would like to go to a question we have from the audience. And I am going to apologize in advance if I mispronounce Bobby Direct's name from Washington State. But he asks, how are the needs, or she, I'm not sure, how are the needs of women veterans being met, the specific needs that you see in women veterans, whether they are PTSD or abuse or family leave?
So we are incredibly proud to have women clinics within our medical center. Not all of them, but many of them have entrances that only women can go to. So if they just want to be with other women veterans, they're able to do that. We have trained providers on women care. We have expanded our reproductive care with IVF, emergency contraceptives, being able to ensure that women can have their entire health care taken care of at the VA, and for any area that they are not physically within the medical system, we partner with community care to be able for our women veterans to go there, to ensure that regardless of what stage our women are in, be it menopause like myself or our younger veterans, that they're able to ensure that they have care. And one of the things that I have done with even my own healthcare is transition to VA, because I have just found that, and this was before I was deputy, when I was chief of staff and no one knew who I was, that really just, the first time someone asked me about my service, what I did, what I was exposed to, my any abuse history, was really from a VA clinician and having that conversation, and as well as counseling. But we also have vet centers, which I think are just the secret sauce within the country, and it's VET Center. And we are also able to provide MST counseling, not only for our women veterans who aren't even enrolled regardless of discharge into enrolled in VA healthcare, but also for active duty service members who may want to have counseling but not necessarily report it through the Department of Defense. And so I'm really proud of the amazing work that we have done with our women veterans. We still have more work to do, and we still have to earn that trust for some of our women veterans. But I've encouraged across the country whenever I speak that women veterans will trust other women veterans, veterans will trust other veterans, and to encourage them to also enroll in VA healthcare. Come to us, try us out. We're not the same VA we were 5 years ago. And I'm just really proud of the work that our VA clinicians have made in ensuring that our veterans, our women veterans, feel that they're comfortable when they come to VA.
Well, another of the many firsts on your resume is the fact that you are the first post 9/11 veteran to hold this position. As I am out covering the campaign trail, I mean, we hear a lot about the forever wars. Could you talk a little bit about, is there a separate set of needs and expectations that veterans from this most modern era have, as opposed to the generations who had come before them?
Our post 9/11 generations are incredibly diverse. And so encouraging us to engage with the VA is, I think, really important, and we have to be very targeted on where we're going to engage them. And a lot of them have really taken advantage of VA education but not fully understanding that we have home loans, not fully understanding we have whole life insurance. We have so many programs that are available to veterans. But the other piece too that I really want veterans to understand is, you know, you came out 5 years ago, you left the military, and you checked it off the blocks and you're done. But almost every year there's a new program or a new opportunity for VA to be able to provide more resources to veterans. And the biggest change I've seen recently is whole life insurance, which really is amazing because it's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, or $40,000. And it comes straight out of the veterans' benefits. And so even though veterans may have said, ooh, okay, we're done, I really encourage veterans to continue to stay connected to VA, because what we've seen when laws get passed, statutes passed, it's never taking any services away from veterans, it's always adding a service. So by staying connected, making sure that veterans stay engaged with VA is just so incredibly important. And that expansion is really a phenomenal way. My dad passed away 2011, and when I went to bury him, he had stopped paying for his whole life insurance. And so I ended up charging, as a captain in the Army, his entire funeral on a credit card. And I know I have peace of mind that that is not going to be the case for my girls. And so just making sure that veterans continue that engagement is so important.
So you had mentioned the PACT Act. This was passed in 2022. What do you think are the biggest advancements that were achieved under the Act, but what also still needs to be done?
First and foremost, 3 million veterans have applied for the PACT Act. That's amazing. We have 740,000 additional veterans enrolled in VA healthcare. We have more women enrolled in VA healthcare. We have more benefits going out the door. We are seeing a large percentage of veterans, their percentages go up because they now qualify for more presumptives under the PACT Act. And it is I'm really proud of the work that we have done. We've also worked incredibly hard. We've done 900 engagements in the last couple of years, really targeting where veterans are at. So we went to Sturgis. I went to South Dakota, me and all the bikers, and it was absolutely amazing, because what we were able to do there is bring 3 of our vet center vans. We had 40 of our VA folks there between benefits, healthcare, and our cemeteries. And we were able to engage veterans where they are. And one of the stories that I think is so amazing from that particular event is we had a service member who was raped on active duty, who just left the military and never connected at all with the VA. She connected with the VA and she went to her first mental health appointment at that event. And our staff, and this is also, I think, what's so amazing, we have so many veterans that serve in the VA, but our staff, we were in the parking lot of the American Legion, and they realized that if they helped serve breakfast in the morning at the American Legion, so on their own time, they went and just helped volunteer to serve, that they could actually talk to veterans coming through the line and let them know that right outside, just come check us out. And that was how they were able, along with the flyers and just walking around, but engaging with veterans where they're at. For the first time in VA's history, we have never seen an engagement program the way we have in the last couple of years. And what's great is it's encouraged even veterans who are not directly eligible under the PACT Act to go ahead and submit their claims. And so we are seeing unprecedented number of claims. Last year we did 2.5 million claims. It's the highest number we've ever done. And this year we're already on trajectory to do more claims than we did last year.
So the Post recently reported that scores of veterans and active duty members of the armed forces are worried, because here we are less than a week from Election Day, are worried that their votes are not going to be counted. Could you, what would you say to them about that?
So in regards to ballots, the mail-in ballots?
Yes,
or,
right.
hopefully we're able to ensure that regardless of where service members are stationed, there's the ability to mail in their ballots. I do know that, so I'm encouraging all of our service members and veterans to vote. I mean, I think that's just, we've worked too dang hard. I'm trying to keep it clean, even though I heard a bomb earlier.
Right.
We've worked too darn hard for us not to express our right to vote. And so I encourage all of our veterans to get out the vote and all of our service members to vote. And that actually was not something popular at the time. For years, we were not really encouraged to necessarily vote, and it's so important that we do.
So we are running out of time, sadly enough. This flew by. But I wanted to also, and again, this is another sort of election-related question, but also related to the recruiting crisis in the military. Have you found that the concept of military service or patriotism itself has changed in light of the current political climate?
You know, what's so great about serving in the military is we all serve together. When I was deployed to Iraq, I never asked anybody if you were a Democrat or Republican. Now, if you like Duke basketball, that was something totally different as a Tar Heel. Right. But, you know, I have found that patriotism is important regardless. And I am very proud of my service, and I am proud of anyone who has raised their right hand to support our Constitution. And, you know, and that's what's so wonderful about the VA is we get the opportunity to take care of everyone. And the current situation is the current situation, the election is the election, but we at the VA, we just get the opportunity to continue to take care of veterans. And that is just the most phenomenal mission for us to have, and I'm very honored to have that opportunity.
Well, we are out of time, and I so appreciate you being with us this morning, and especially reminding us of the Americans who are out there doing their job every day and never disappointing us.
Absolutely, and thank you for your dad's service.
Thank you.
Federal Credit Union is right for military members and their families because our products are tailored for them.
Without the members, we have no reason to be here.
I'm able to support military members and their families because I've been there and done that.
My job is to put you first. I will help you along the way. You are my mission.
It's about who we serve rather than about ourselves.
I feel like I'm doing my part in supporting our service members, and they're supporting us, the country.
Our members are the mission.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kathleen Koch. I'm a longtime Washington correspondent and prize-winning author. I'm really excited to see all the support for and celebration of veterans, of our service members here today, because they sacrifice so much. And I know this because I've seen it firsthand. My late father, my brother, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, my son-in-law, my niece and her husband, and my nephew all either served or currently serve in the U.S. military. And I have seen how sometimes as folks are getting ready to transition to civilian life, they can face some, financial challenges. But what's really exciting is that there is help, especially for those who are looking to start or grow businesses. And so here to tell us about that today is retired Army Colonel Larry Perino. And Larry is Assistant Vice President of Commercial and Small Business in Business Solutions at Navy Federal Credit Union. So welcome, Larry.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Before we get started, I am going to give you a bit of his bio because it's pretty darn impressive. During his 25-year military career, Larry held both command and staff positions at multiple levels while serving in armies, special operations, joint and multinational international organizations. He had several overseas and combat tours and received multiple awards during his career, including the Silver Star. And you know that's pretty important. Silver Star was awarded for his actions in Somalia in 1993 as a Ranger platoon leader during the Battle of Mogadishu. And of course, if that sounds familiar at all, that is because the actions of Larry and Task Force Ranger were captured in the book and the subsequent movie Black Hawk Down, which I highly recommend. Larry earned his bachelor's degree at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and his MBA at American Military University. He retired from the United States Army in 2015 and now helps those in the military pursue their business goals. Well, Larry, that is quite an impressive 25-year career. How did your service position you for success outside of military life?
Well, first of all, I felt completely blessed and privileged to have actually served this nation for 20 plus years. And I never really considered it ever a job. Mm-hmm. I didn't. And some people say it was a calling. I just truly enjoyed what I was doing. I enjoyed being around the soldiers. And it was because of that, and then actually serving alongside what I think are some of the greatest Americans, are the greatest Americans out there, to actually, to wear their nation's color in defense of our nation. It was pretty easy. So leaving it was a little bit of a challenge. But
so it was part of who you were.
It was part of who I was. But some of the things that I thought that actually led to where I'm at now, that I learned, that was instilled from the big thing, is leadership, problem solving, setting the example. When I talk about leadership, it's servant leadership. A cause that is greater than you. And I had great examples. Now, we'll have to say the speaker following me is my West Point classmate, and he's exactly one of those type of people. He was one of my classmates, but I looked up to him, and too many to count, and longer than the time that I have here to talk about how they inspired me to move forward, and really to kind of set those skills to kind of be successful on the outside.
What advice would you have to fellow veterans who are beginning that transition to civilian life, especially as it relates to their finances?
That's a great question. So for me, as a retiree, I needed a mission. At that point, when I was getting ready to retire, it's something that I've done for over 2 decades, a quarter of a century. Now I'm going to have to shift. And what does this second act look like? So, was I going to start my own business? Did I want to work in the corporate world? Did I want to stay familiar within defense? And at the end of the day, I think I needed something. And of course, you need to have a paycheck. You need to keep the lights on. You need to pay the bills. But what's more important, instead of chasing after the dollars, for me, it was about culture. For me, it was about a mission that I could get behind. It was something that I believed in. And once again, it's that thought of service. Yes.
So what resources are out there for veterans who are thinking, starting a business or switching to sort of a different line of work?
Well, first of all, the one thing I would tell somebody as they're serving, as they leave, as they transition out and before, and I can go back into what resources are out there, but as if they transition out of the military, is you got to have a plan. Okay. One of those things they teach us, have a plan. If you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail, that saying. So you have to really have a plan. What are you going to go to school? And you got to really walk your way through that. Now, what resources are there out there? So, and there's plenty. Now, and the speakers before, they talked about the transition assistance programs that each service has, and they're fine, but they're pretty canned. But at least, and they vary depending on post to post and service to service. But at least, take as much advantage of all the resources that are out there to help you, to include your financial institution. Who are you banking with? Who are you, what kind of relationship do they have with you? Is it transactional or is it relationship based? So, but as far as other resources, there are a ton of resources. So let's say you decide that you want to get into that you're missing a certain skill set. There's free resources like the Institute for Veterans and Military Families, which is run by Syracuse University. It's a fantastic, I got my project management certification directly from them. It's free of charge for veterans, either active duty veterans or their families, immediate families, to provide different programs to provide those certifications for some of those, if you want to get into in IT, project management, and it goes on and on and on. And big fan of Google, and start searching to be able to find those institutions, or just start talking to talking to individuals and talking to organizations about the resources are out there, and sometimes it can be blinding because there's just so many resources that you can find, you don't even know where to start.
Let's talk about entrepreneurship, because I understand that veterans are more likely to start their own businesses than the average American, and that they also thrive as entrepreneurs. So why is that?
Well, 45% of veterans say they are self-employed. So you could say that they're veteran business owners. And in the United States, there's 1.9 million veteran-owned businesses. And they employ 5 million people in this country. So, I mean, it's extremely, extremely important. Why do they do it? A lot of it is some of those things. It's there's a couple things. It's a risky business, but they're used to taking risks. They're used to solving problems. They're used to owning their battle space, as we used to say. They have that resiliency that a lot of people don't want to, if they don't want to take that step, because it's a scary thing. You want to start your own business on your own. And at the end, they want to control their own destiny a little bit. Instead of being told what to do, they want to be able to do that themselves. But that's why they wanted to start, but why they thrive is all those other things. It's the leadership, the discipline, the complex problem solving, and the resiliency that actually allows them to thrive as they continue their journey as business owners.
Are there any particular challenges, specific challenges that veteranpreneurs face, though, as they're beginning to launch their businesses? And what advice would you have for them in overcoming those?
Okay, well, and that's great. So as in the panel before, hit it right off the head. The number one obstacle that startups, especially veteran startups, they have is access to capital, right?
Like any business owner, right? Or
yeah,
would be business
access
owner.
to capital. The next is credit. So establishing credit. So you don't have a long established 2 years of tax returns to be able to qualify for traditional bank financing. So you haven't really established your credit. And the third is cash flow and business financial acumen. To be able to, how do you, to actually really not having that knowledge of how to run a business. Now, so it's not all bleak, but there's ways to kind of be able to overcome that. And the first thing, as far as access to capital, is, well, first of all, let's talk about building your credit. As you establish with your, establish a business banking account, credit card, your deposit accounts, checking and savings, and the like, and to be able to build that base of credit. But there's also things, if you don't qualify for financing, the Small Business Administration, they offer loans, either Veterans Express or 7A or 504s. There's many different programs that are sponsored by the Small Business Administration that will allow them to move forward. And really, quite frankly, that's why it was set up, right? So for businesses, the small business set that up to have vehicles to be able to help somebody that doesn't qualify for traditional financing. And then the last thing we really talk about business, the acumen that we really talk about. There's organizations, also again with the SBA, it's wonderful for their veteran business outreach centers. There's programs like Boots to Business. There's a multitude of programs. Like what I would tell you is, seek out this advice of who to really turn to, but they actually help you. There's also a ton of nonprofits. I'll pick one out of the air that actually provides you that financial education. It's pretty small. I'll talk about them later on. But other ones like the Rosie Network, which is another nonprofit that actually provides the training and education, what's your business plan look like,
And these are specific for veteranpreneurs, I should say.
Yes.
And what about their spouses, too?
Well, I'll just go back. We started talking about the Rosie Network, and that's just an example. Well, the SBA also has programs that are available for not only active duty veterans and spouses, but you talk about this, not like the Rosie Network, which is fantastic because it was started, I think, approximately 10 years ago by this wonderful lady named Stephanie Brown. They're based out of San Diego, but they operate nationwide. And they've partnered with like National University to have a service to CEO program. And there's others like that, which actually does the training and education for veterans and their spouses. And if you really think about it, that's really important because that is not only veterans considered, but spouses it's an underserved community. And it really needs it. So, 71% of all, let's go back to before that, but of all military households, 71% of the spouses control the finances for that household.
So when they have their business, it's up and running. What about growing and scaling? What resources are there for them? What advice do you have for them in that area?
Well, growing and scaling, and then typically let's go back and when they're starting, if they still don't qualify and they're still trying to grow, there's community CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions, which actually will provide grants for startups. I'll give you two of them, just out of the Loan Fund or Warrior Rising are just two of many. Street Shares, which is also known for online lending, but they also have a foundation which also does provide grants in education. Other ways to be able, of course, is traditional financing, provided by Navy Federal business, solutions and things that we were able to provide. But as they grow their business, there's certain areas they can take a look at. If they want to, as far as growth, it's still access to capital, and that's what's really important, but then networking within their field. So if you want in government, they want to go into government contracting. So if you get certified by the SBA as a certified veteran-owned small business or a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, now you can qualify for government contracts to small business set-asides that will be able to, grow your business and get contracts through the government. So there's so many different resources that are out there. Sometimes it can get a little confusing, but you can grow it. And then the last thing I would have to, when I talk about networking, there's other nonprofits that allow you to talk to folks within your industry. The National Veteran Small Business Coalition is one of many that really focuses on GovCon and the GovCon industry, veterans in business. I mean, there's so many out there that it's more than you think, that you're not alone.
I thought it was interesting when you and I were discussing all this before we came out here. You, in working with these veteranpreneurs, you share all this information with them, not just what Navy Federal Credit Union can do for them, but all these other organizations. That's pretty special.
Well, absolutely, and it is important because we are a financial institution, but we're not for profit, and so our focus really not on our shareholders, our profit. We're based off of member service, and what better things that we can do for our members than to steer them in the right direction. We may not be able to help you yet, but we can provide some advice. We can provide you a curated route of how do I get to where I want to be. When I talk about, I can get you to the SCORE Foundation, which is a wonderful mentorship, which is another way to grow your business. Mentorship is pretty important. SCORE has a stat that, a veteran that has a mentor, a business that has a mentor is 90% of the time they are there in a year, as opposed to 78% if you don't have a mentor. And I think it's like 80% after 5 years. So it's really important. But for us, we're not the mentorship, but we don't provide the mentors, but we really rely on organizations like SCORE, like the Rosie Network, and really steer folks towards. We do work with Boots to Business because for us it's all about building a better member and building a better business member. And if they're successful, we're successful, to be honest with you.
Colonel Larry Perino, Assistant Vice President of Commercial and Small Business in Business Solutions at Navy Federal Credit Union. Thanks for the great discussion, and thank you for everything you do to help those who serve.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. Absolutely.
Right,
thank you.
Stay put, my friends at the Washington Post. We'll be right back.
Gathering what is current on the battlefields today and how do we incorporate them in so that our developing leaders of character have got that information and they can sort through different situations, because it might not a matter of if, but a matter of when they might have to confront similar scenarios as leaders of platoons, companies, troops, batteries out in our Army.
Good morning, everybody. Great to see you. I'm Matt Murray. I'm the executive editor of the Washington Post. I'm really delighted to be joined by Lieutenant General Steve Gilland, the superintendent of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. General, welcome to the Post. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Let's talk about leadership to start. West Point's approach to leadership, it describes itself as the world's preeminent leader development institution, where you study and teach character-based leadership. Tell us what that means and what you think the key to character development is.
So the first part is the key, which is immersion. In being surrounded by different people, which is our staff, our faculty, our coaches, the people that work there, and everybody is committed to this endeavor, which is developing young people into being leaders of character. And I always say that you might study physics or economics, mechanical engineering, or philosophy, and that's what your degree might be in from an academic perspective. But you're really getting a Bachelor of Science degree in character development and leadership because you are immersed in it every day. It's around you. You start through when you come in on day one with you swearing an oath to the Constitution, and you are surrounded by cadet leaders and those people around you that are promoting what good character is. And I would define that as your actions, your inactions, your beliefs, your attitudes, values, your language, your behavior. That makes up who you are, and that's your character.
I mean, we all have an image, a lot of us, of course, in our heads of sort of old Army movies or basic training movies from 80 years ago, and I know it's not like that, or maybe it was never like that, I suppose. But in the military context and of West Point, do you think that part of what you're talking about, particularly for people at the age when they're starting colleges, maybe expecting some things out of young people or behavior or thinking of themselves as moldable in a certain ways more than other institutions do? Is that part of the secret?
I think that's part of it, yes, Matt. When we think about who makes up the Corps of Cadets, they come from all over the world. Different backgrounds, different upbringings, potentially different value sets. And then they come in and we talk about the ideals of aligning with the ideals of duty, honor, country, and our Army values, which then is are they adaptable? Are they moldable? And I think that our young people today absolutely are adaptable and moldable when we think about the different aspects of life and their experiences up until being 18 to 24. I would also say that our younger generation today is looking for purpose. And what is that purpose? What brings people together? Unity of purpose, achieving goals. And when we lay out our curriculum and the purpose of the United States Military Academy, which is truly developing leaders of character, I think that excites people.
What you talk about a classroom all over the world in different places, or all over the country in different places, I guess. What are the common elements when you're assessing candidates? You have a high application rate. How do you know somebody is likely to be successful or not? What are the traits that stand out? Because it's not just about GPAs or test scores, I'm sure. How do you assess candidates?
I appreciate the fact that you said it's not just about GPA and test scores. However, academics is a large component of it. Standardized testing truly does give you a reflection of one's ability to, handle particularly the first year of college or university level work. But there's also a physical component to it. There's also the character component, and that character component being, as we ask the students that apply, young people that apply, to get recommendations from teachers, coaches, et cetera, on what their character is. Are they willing to be part of something that's bigger than themselves? And that's being part of a team. And the Army is a team. And by virtue of coming to the United States Military Academy, in the development of the leadership and character aspect, we're expecting them to go out when they graduate and lead 30 to 40 other young men and women in our Army as a team in order to be able to accomplish missions, objectives that the Army lays out for them. We
were talking a little bit before we came on about the world that today's students are going to enter. Just last month, you wrote an article in the Military Review. It was called West Point 2050, and I want to quote from the article. You wrote, "Today the Army and the Academy are at an inflection point. Geopolitical competition and technological advancements threaten to undermine the rules-based international order established in the aftermath of World War II." Can you talk a little bit about the real-world challenges that will be encountered by some of the cadets and how that affects how you're training and preparing them for the world that they're going to inherit?
Yeah, Matt. As we think about the influx of technology, not only over the past few decades, but as we see technology developing and the emergence of new technology in the future, do we create a framework of which our cadets, who are going to be our future leaders, not only in our Army, but in our nation, do they possess the critical thinking skills? Do they open the aperture or the lenses to be able to look at a problem and put teams together from multiple different backgrounds to solve these different problems? Technology as we see it, and for all of us, let's think back 30 years ago. Which most of us can probably identify what we were doing 30 years ago. But the advancements in technology that have occurred since I'll say the mid-1990s, and how fast that has happened. Now, let's think of an evolution of the next 30 years, which puts us in the mid-2050s. And I think from the Academy perspective, are we setting those conditions for the young people that are coming into the Academy today to be leaders in the 2040s, the 2050s, because they will be the battalion commanders of our Army. They will be the brigade commanders of our Army. They will be the superintendent of the United States Military Academy. They will also be leading companies in private and public sector. And have they learned the adaptability skills in order to, as things change, are they willing to make decisions that potentially leads an organization down a different path because the environment has changed? And that's what it's really about, the critical thinking aspect.
I want to put that in context of your journey. Can you tell us a little bit about your own background and your own preparation and experience for the changes that you've seen? You came from a small town in Illinois.
Yes, sir.
To find your way to West Point. But when you look back on your journey and where you are now, just take us through a little bit what you learned at West Point and how that has prepared you for what you've seen during your career.
So when I think back ago, I would say in a place far, far away, in a century long ago, which was the last century, of course, when we were at the United States Military Academy. I think what the Academy taught me was about grit, perseverance, dedication. I came from a small rural community in Western Illinois, not having any idea what the Army was or even what service to our nation was. I learned some of these skills at the Academy and then went out into our Army. And that's where I really, through experiential learning, exposure to our non-commissioned officers in various different units over the course of now 30 plus years, those non-commissioned officers and the experience that I gained from them, they taught me about serving something that is bigger than myself, this greater good. We didn't talk about it much at the Academy 35 years ago. We absolutely promote it today and have for many years, partly in due because many of our graduates have gone out and served in deployments to Iraq, Afghanistan, and other places relatively soon after graduating. And we owe it to them. We owe it to you as the citizens of our nation because they're leaders of our sons and daughters to make sure that they've got the tools to go be successful.
And we should say during your career, you were deployed. You've been in many places, Africa, the Middle East, you were in Afghanistan. I think we all lived in some of those zones through periods of rapidly changing technology and strategies, including moments where the military stopped and said, are we doing things right, and relearned or retaught itself. We watched that happen where where reinventing the military for current warfare was necessary. So were you prepared for that, or did those experiences inform how you're preparing the cadets of tomorrow at West Point now?
I think that, was I prepared for it? Probably not as much as I should have been. However, by maintaining an open mind to things, and by virtue of serving in different positions that I've been fortunate to serve in, it allowed me to be able to say, okay, things are going to change. And we've got to expect that as we look at today's world and the turbulent environment that exists out there. I mean, we're taking lessons from Ukraine and Russia environment right now. We're taking lessons learned from the Middle East with the Israeli Hamas, Israeli Hezbollah, conflict, and how do we adapt, those lessons into our curriculum? I won't say real time, but near real time, as applicable through our various our courses that we offer at the Military Academy, in order to expose young men and women to what is happening out there today, which also includes summer opportunities where they leave the academy and will go and serve in different units in Asia Pacific, for instance. They'll go to Europe, and they'll come down here to DC and serve in various capacities, whether it's on Capitol Hill or with industry. The partnerships and relationships that we've developed exposes our cadets specifically to different things, so that they can then put those tools into their proverbial kit bag and take them forward when they're leading in our Army.
It's probably more important than even in the past in some ways, because the world is changing so quickly, to be ready to improvise and apply and learn on the fly and change what you're doing, and not be wedded to traditional ways of doing things, or even necessarily recent ways of doing things in some cases, I suppose.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And I look at our adversaries, and I mean, we have to adapt and look at our adversaries through different lenses, because what our adversaries were 20 years ago, 40 years ago, may not be what they're going to be in the future. Right. And we've got to understand that, and we've got to be able to go forward with that mindset.
I think all the conversations today have touched a bit upon the declining recruitment numbers. And as a reminder, according to the annual Defense Authorization Bill, the military in 2024 is the smallest active duty force, I think, since 1940. How worried are you? And if we need to turn this around, how do we turn this around?
Well, I think we are turning it around, Matt, and it's through engagement. We're fortunate that not only at the Military Academy, our respective applicant numbers have been very steady, and in fact, for this year, they've actually increased. That's total applicants. I always look at through the lens, are they medically and physically qualified, though? And that number has remained relatively steady over the past 5 to 7 years.
Including physical qualifications, because we do see stories about people being out of shape or young kids not being fit enough for the military, but you think that's leveled off?
The numbers have leveled off, even though our applicants have gone up. I don't think that's a good thing. I think that as we look around our nation and we think about medical and physical, I mean, it's about being active, it's doing different things. Our Army, I call it a team contact sport. It requires you to do hard things. In order to do hard things, you gotta grow up doing some of that. And so when we look at the Army, and we've got a program, our pre-entry program, that brings young men and women who have a desire to serve, to bring them into a initial entry environment where we work specifically on those physical skills, so that because they have this desire, they have a purpose. Maybe their background wasn't as physical as what we desire in the Army, but we put them through a program that develops that. And then they go into our basic combat training, the initial entry program, and they're successful. And then they go and they serve in our Army. And that has been a very positive aspect.
So to be clear, when you say that you are turning it around, do you think we've bottomed out in terms of recruiting classes and size, that we're going to be able to come back up, or do you think we're in the midst of it still?
I think that there are trends that says we have bottomed out. We are increasing. I do believe, though, across our nation, there are many communities out there who don't understand the benefits of serving in our military, the aspects of being able to go and serve in whatever capacity. The Army's got over 200 plus job skills that you can join and serve, which also includes active duty component, our reserves, and our National Guard. What is key to that, though, is that our recruiters, our young people, and particularly parents have an understanding of what the military is. And so there's narratives, there's promotion of the ideals of what our Army is made of, which is we consist of the Army values, first and foremost. We're a values-based institution. And that's really important as we think about across our nation if people are exposed to the military. Key to all of that is not everybody wants to go to college. Not everybody wants to go and serve in a university. There's incredible programs across our nation in high schools that give certifications. We can help young men and women, figure out what they want to do in life, give them tremendous leadership skills, knowledge, experience, benefits, not only in uniform but out of uniform. And whether you stay in the Army for 3 years or 30 years, I mean, we always look at a soldier for life, just as our veterans were up here, and we think about what our veterans have done to help others, to promote the values of the Army and what they learn from it. Because as you have heard previously, each one of us has a different story to tell, and each of those stories are very powerful.
Last question. We are living at a time when faith has declined in all kinds of public institutions and organizations, a theme around the Washington Post this week too, for that matter. What role can West Point and the leaders of West Point and the veterans from West Point play in turning that around and helping us regain some faith in American institutions from a nonpartisan perspective?
I think it boils down to trust. And as we think about the respective civil-military divide, is what some people will call it, I would call it needs to be the civil-military connection. Because we are all in this together as citizens of our nation. And the trust is foundational to everything that we do. And so how do we build that trust? It's through engagement. It's through the stories that veterans tell. And not everything is necessarily going to be incredibly positive. But I would tell you that mostly it is incredibly positive. And what people gain from service in our military really sets the stage for their future life and how they go about leading it.
We're going to have to leave it there, General. I wish we had more time because it's interesting and I have more questions to talk to you, but I want to thank General Gilland very much for joining me here today and for joining all of us. It's been a real pleasure to chat. Really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thank
Matt.
you very much.
And thanks to the Washington Post.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you for coming today, in person and virtually. I invite you to stop by our Veterans Resource Fair, which is outside these doors. There's a wide and very dynamic array of organizations supporting veterans and their families. And if you're not already a subscriber, I would urge you to sign up for a free trial by visiting WashingtonPost.com/live. Again, I'm Matt Murray, the executive editor, and thanks again for being with us today. Have a great day. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And thank you very much.